Wetlands Stewardship Program. It's the only way to walk onto the Los Cerritos wetlands legally. So what we're here for today is our land tour. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go on our raptor ramble. We're gonna see some velociraptors like Jurassic Park. Maybe not. Maybe we're just gonna see some hawks and some falcons and some fun stuff like that. We're gonna walk through the 100 acres of what they used to call the Hellman properties. We're gonna talk about endangered birds, talk about endangered plants. We're gonna get over there and we're gonna talk about the native peoples that used to live here. So it's gonna be a fun little tour. I promised raptors, we haven't even entered the property yet. We see one. Oh, there you go. Specific kinds of animals, specific kinds of plants that can only live here. They live with the salt. Salt is the biggest stressor out here. Salt kills these plants, but they have the ability to live with it. So then a lot of the animals that live in here have the ability to live with those stresses also. And one that we have out here is our keystone species, our flagship species. This is the Belding savanna sparrow. This is an endangered bird. There's only a couple thousand of them left in the world. And they live out here. We have an endangered bird out here. We have several rare and endangered species on our site. But they live in this pickleweed. This pickleweed grows in the mid-marsh and gets covered in tides somewhat regularly. But then this pickleweed lives in the upper marsh. It has the ability to live with a lot of salt, but it only gets covered in tides maybe twice a year. But you can tell where the tides come in. And so all you'll see at a super high tide are the tops of these plants. Imagine this plant, or the mid-marsh pickleweed. It's terrestrial for half the day, and then it's an aquatic plant for the rest of it, which is really neat because it makes this habitat very, very unique. This is what they called Landing Hill. This is where ships would come in right into Seal Beach, and they would use this hill as one of their direction points. And you get up into this large hill, Landing Hill, Signal Hill, Alamitos Mesa. Why were those hills there? The different freshwater streams would come from this whole watershed, and they'd come through and they'd shape these different hills and shape the different land this way, and they would meet right here in Los Cerritos. Los Cerritos means little hills. Those hills bring in the fresh water into the salt water, and that creates what they call an estuary. And for habitat, like the coyotes, like the hawks, like everything that we saw and all the stuff that we didn't see, it's really incredible because it creates that diversity. If you're a native person that happens to live here, this is utopia, with all the water that you need, with the trees to build all your stuff, and then you have a salt marsh, you have an estuary where you can go fishing, you can hunt for duck, you can pull clams out of the ground. They believe that right where we are sitting, man came out of the ground. It is their Garden of Eden. It is the place where the world was created. The Gabrielinos, the Tongvas, they lived here on Landing Hill, they lived within Long Beach, they lived within basically what is LA County. How many people do you think that they felt was the sustainable number of their tribe in LA County? 5,000 people was all they felt that the natural resources here in California with the technologies that they had was what they could support. And they had to make it, they had to find it, they had to pull it out. So there's a plant that grows out here, it's called chia. It's incredibly potent. It's got a lot of nutrients in it, and they would take the seeds of the chia, they'd mix it with water, they'd add a little bit of sweetener, either mesquite honey or an agave nectar kind of thing. They would mix that together, and that's what they'd drink before going on hunts, before going on long travels, because it kept you full. A few of the other plants, the berries, they would watch the birds eating the berries, and so they found that these were super nutritious. And we call this one mule fat. But what do you think they'd use this for? Arrows. Arrows, spears, building material. It's somewhat bendable. This is white sage. This plant, they would burn it every time there was a new birth, anytime somebody died, anytime they were telling a story that kept their tribe together. And when they burned this plant, it meant that their ancestors were coming out to bless them. It meant that their ancestors were coming out to protect them and to watch over them.